5 o'clock. Just so you know, it's 5.
Yep. And we have 9 present.
Yep.
So, yeah, let's just go ahead and get started, I think.
Yep.
501, call to order.
I think we have everyone present.
Except Jim.
Except for Jim. Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I did not hear from him, so maybe he'll join us in progress.
All right. The minutes. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? Hearing no corrections to the minutes, they stand as read. Item 1, Amendment 2 to the 2021 Comprehensive Plan.
Yeah, so this was referred to several committees, and I should have had this on the agenda last time, but didn't put it on there by mistake. So the focus was the zoning code, so you get your chance this time. Not quite sure. Let's see, I have the plan I can pull up. How would you like to, do you have a recommendation, or do you have I have a recommendation, but if you have a certain way you'd like to go, Tad, I'll just defer to you, obviously.
Well, so what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking just for general feedback, or are you looking for this to end with a motion of some kind?
So, well, feedback, and if you wish to incorporate that into a motion, that's fine. So,
okay.
As background for everybody, we have this comprehensive plan that we adopted. We rewrote it, overhauled our plan, brand new plan, 2021. And every year, our practice is to go through it and make sure it retains its relevancy and is current. And so, as part of that exercise, certain committees get a chance to review it. And so, what I said in my memo was specifically the future land use map on pages 23, 24, and then strategies and actions in the transportation chapter would be of particular interest to the committee. And let me just figure out how to close this window here for some reason. Smaller. So the future land use map is first, and that looks like this. This is for the city boundary within the existing city limits, and this is the future growth area. So what this doesn't show here yet, and we were fixing that, is our actually, do I have the right year? Sorry, I got the wrong map up. My apologies. Amended. Oh, that was last year. Sorry. I pulled the wrong one up. Maybe I should grab the one from the memo. How's that for? Wouldn't that be helpful? There we go. So the future land use map looks like this. This has the correct boundary now with Red Tail Ridge annexed to the city. And there's some changes, minor changes we're making. Well, depending on who you talk to, they're minor. But we had a mapping error along Allen Boulevard where we originally showed this area down here. I'll zoom into it as single family established neighborhood, meaning single family in the future. And we have now changed that, or proposing to change that, to what we call avenue mixed use. And also there was an error with mapping conservancy, or not mapping conservancy, and that's been fixed. So those are the main changes to the map. There's been quite a bit of discussion regarding the Allen Boulevard parcel. This is the soccer field next to Marshall Park, and so that's led to quite a bit of input in public hearing. So the Planning Commission was interested if you had any thoughts on the future land use map, as well as the objective, the strategies and goals in the transportation chapter. I can go to either one. There's a whole section on emphasizing complete streets, which we've taken care of. In red here is the new text that indicates the changes since the last edition of the comprehensive plan, reflecting that we adopted the policy. And by the way, if you haven't heard, there was the National Complete Streets Coalition identified the top policies in the country over the last 3 years, and ours actually came in at number 11. So that's quite an accomplishment for the city, I think, for all of us here to celebrate. Again, not too many changes to the strategies and actions. We did have under, just go to the changes here. We did have the desire to ensure that we, as we plan for the city, that we make, let's see here, this one reads, under complete a network of bicycle lanes and paths linking all city neighborhoods. 2 major east-west routes to the city are constrained by limited right-of-way and have traffic volumes that make them undesirable for bicyclists in the present lane configuration. And this is where we introduced the idea of a road diet along certain sections of these corridors. That's item 3 on the agenda later, as part of this, to determine the feasibility of having a road diet. So that's something we're recommending be added. And then also in the install bicycle infrastructure that is more protective than traditional bike lanes. We've had feedback that we should try and get some buffered bike lanes, protected bike lanes, separated bikeways, etc. So that is something we're emphasizing on this plan in this update. And then updating information regarding the BRT and transit, just a minor change. One thing that I don't think we have incorporated in here yet is the concept of adopting or preparing bicycle active modes plan, we're calling it, or active transportation plan. And I don't recall that has found its way in here yet, other than here it is, an updated bicycle and pedestrian plan. So I was going to suggest that if you have any language changes here, that I mean, this can stay the way it is. There's no harm in keeping it this way, but based on some research I've done and the experience I had in Fort Collins last June, I saw that they've done a very nice job with the active modes plan, they're calling it. I would like to do something similar here this winter. Workload wise, that's something we're planning on doing. So this can stay the way it is, but we might make a reference to changing the language to reflect that objective. That's all I have. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess this is John Schaefer, Alderman. This is all kind of broad and flashing by and vague. And I'm still not quite sure what you're looking for in this, except that, I certainly think that the emphasis on the bike and the bike travel is all great. But I think that the emphasis on looking at Allen Boulevard as a major corridor, and I'm not speaking against the people on the lake, but there's a lot of property on that highway that's a major highway, and I think the rezoning thoughts about that area are effective for that area. Other than that, I don't have a lot to say, because I guess you're looking for sort of amorphous stuff here, I guess. End of conversation.
Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you recognize me?
Yes, I did.
On page 49, on the parking issues, I would like to see a stronger statement for locations of handicap parking and senior parking closer to downtown Middleton. We've discussed this in previous meetings. I guess the point is that we need to consider in the future the more elderly people we have in town, for the ability for them to park their cars closer to where they want to go in downtown Middleton. I don't know if you can get this into this, Mark, or not, but
I think it's an excellent
this was brought up a couple times.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good improvement that you're identifying. I wish I thought of that. It's something we have talked about. We've tentatively identified some locations for on-street parking. but I really like the idea of adding that to the plan, or to adding that, specifically calling that out. So I think this page is the section to do that. Or possibly, well, since you thought ahead and are recommending it there, I think we can make that work there. So, or as part of the complete streets section would be another idea as well. But I think, yeah, establishing loading zone congested areas. So what I've thought about doing is finding a way to establish, to co-locate loading zones and accessible parking spaces. Loading zones tend to be used more in the morning in our commercial area. And then, of course, that's when fewer people are using the land, coming to the restaurants and shops. So by the time the trucks leave, generally that's when parking demand is picking up. And so I think there's an opportunity to co-locate them. It's been on my back burner a little bit because of my focus on the zoning ordinance and other things. But I really like the idea of adding that. So I will make sure we do that.
Thank you.
So including a stronger statement on having more accessible spaces, conveniently located in the downtown area. Conveniently located accessible spaces in the downtown areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would ask, is this only a problem in the downtown area, or are there other locations where this is a problem?
I think what Ken is getting at is it's a problem in the downtown area specifically because we have so many places that don't have their own off-street parking lots. And so I think, Ken, what you're getting at is having on-street accessible parking. That's the discussion we had previously?
Correct.
Yeah. So when she served on the committee here, Alder Olson was an advocate for this and started that discussion. And I know Alder Wilkes has been interested in this as well, and John Schaefer, Alder Schaefer as well. So we are tasked with and I've discussed this a few months ago here, tasked with finding the appropriate sign that Public Works can live with, or signage. And I've done some research, but I just haven't been able to get back to it. Sean Stowski's, I don't want to get into this in too much detail just because this is more meant to be a broader discussion, but in a nutshell, the tug of war has been designing spaces that comply with ADA standards. And when you have on-street parking, you can't meet all those standards because of, having a zone where the door opens and there's an area where people are driving or parking. And my response to that, and I think as others too, is these don't have to be fully legal. They don't have to meet dot all the I's and cross the T's. They can, a lot of people don't need all the bells and whistles of a full ADA space, like what you would see at a shopping center, Costco, or, designed that way. We just are trying to make it more accessible for people who, it's to supplement what's already there and to have it more conveniently located to businesses. Good suggestion. We'll add that. Assuming that, what we really would like to see is committee consensus for all these. We also take individual comments, of course, as well. But does anybody have any concerns about adding that? I guess would be the question.
Mark?
Yes.
I don't know if this is a good comment or not, and it just kind of hit my head now when we were talking about Allen Boulevard. But we got an island of Madison, Marshall Park, and sometimes that is so crowded that they're parking on the grass. I'm guessing that they probably park on Middleton Beach Road, or maybe, Lake View or Mendota. Are we looking at adjacent property and how that affects places like Allen Boulevard, adjacent Madison property? Like, so we can see what's going on the Madison side, and address it or balance it or fight it or whatever. I don't know. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm just. I'm
not
thinking
entirely-
aloud.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm thinking
just-
aloud, so I'm not. My thoughts aren't well put.
I'm not sure I see the connection to the comprehensive plan. I understand the concern, but I'm not sure how it would work into the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Lisa?
Yes. Mark, I seem to recall we're going to remove the specific reference to B-cycle and instead have generic shared mobility. Is that in the
Yeah,
edited version
about-
we're looking at?
I thought my colleagues, so I actually did no editing of the plan this year because I've just been too busy with other things. But so I thought that Daphne and Abby had removed that.
Okay. The reason I bring it up is because on the page we're looking at right now, it
Oh,
talks
right.
about rules for
Yeah.
expanding B-cycle. So
Yeah.
if we are downplaying a reference to a specific shared mobility system, which, you know, we could do, or we could stick with B-cycle. But certainly if we are downplaying it in the text, we should probably change what that says and just talk about shared mobility instead of
Yeah,
B-cycle.
and I think what happened is I recall you, I think it was you who made that comment before, and I think they did change references in the text. This is actually a graphic. As I recall, that came. I'll look into that, Lisa. I think that's a good comment. I don't know why that part hasn't changed. I thought we were changing that too. This might be B-cycle's information that they provided. I'll look into that. So just refer to bike share. Okay.
Jim?
Yep, I just wanted to let you know I am present here. I got here a little bit late.
Thank you. Everybody's here. That's great.
Any other comments for Mark?
And I didn't necessarily expect a lot of changes. You know, the idea is that we'd like to think we did a good job 2 years ago and did some editing last year, and you know, so this doesn't necessarily require a lot of changes. I appreciate your feedback. You ready to move on?
Yeah, I hear no other comments. Let's move on.
Or maybe if we can, Tad, if you don't mind, if we can ask if anybody has any objections to any of these changes. Maybe we'll do it that way, and then we can have the action item be that by consensus the committee supports those changes or something like that.
All right. Are there any objections to any of the changes? That would be the red text throughout.
And the additions that were being suggested for the more conveniently located, accessible on-street spaces. So that I will add some staff will add that, and the reference to B-cycle, just making being more generic. And then Alder Schaefer, I'm not sure how to capture your comments regarding zoning on Allen Boulevard. I wasn't sure.
Well, that's okay. You can treat those as a sidebar and not capture them. It's just information. Since this is my first time on a committee and I'm just working through this stuff.
That's okay. And then the idea of mentioning the active transportation plan. Does anybody have any thoughts on what we should call that? Active modes is kind of the geeky version of it. Does anybody have any thoughts on? It's not a big deal, but just curious what your thoughts are. Especially I was interested in Kirsten and Tad's thoughts, since you and well, anybody who has thoughts.
I would favor active transportation, a nice balance of geeky and non-geeky.
Yeah.
I like that as well.
Okay. And
Yeah, I think that's fine.
thank you. I also, as part of that, am envisioning that we'll have a chapter on accessible transportation, on accessibility. I don't recall if Fort Collins had that in theirs, but I feel like making sure, consistent with our complete streets efforts, making sure that all modes, including people who use devices for assistance, you know, that I just wanted to let you know that that's part of my thinking going into that plan too. Okay.
Kirsten,
Go ahead, sir.
hang on, Kirsten, just a reminder, your camera's off. All right, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'm doing a couple other things, so I just had the camera off so it's not distracting.
That's fine. We have a quorum anyway. So it just, and since I have everybody here and we haven't had full attendance, I think in a while, the reason why Tad brought that up is because the city council has a policy of, in order to be counted as being present and participating in the meeting, you have to have your camera on. That was the reason why he asked. So, that's all I needed for this item, Tad.
All right. So are there any objections to the red text or the things we brought up? So yeah, no objections. We'll treat that as consensus. Now item 2,
This is a mess. And it's been really frustrating for the last several months to try and get the contractor to finish this job. What you see here in your packet is the final change order that came in a couple of weeks ago. KL Engineering, which is our construction engineer that's been managing the project for the city. The red text is from them, is their commentary. We asked Badgerland last week to get us a clean version of this. They still haven't. The reason they haven't is they still have a little work that they're doing they're trying to get subcontractors to come back. So I was hoping to give you a clean version of this, but I wasn't able to. So I guess what I was looking for here, you know, the reason why this is even in the packet is because ultimately this needs to be approved by the council, and we just wanted a committee to review it and make a recommendation. It's not ready in final form, but if you wanted to endorse the concept of it and the changes, you know, that would be fine. I would defer to Alderman Iro, who's chair of our finance committee, if she has any concerns with that approach. Otherwise, what we would do is take it straight to the finance committee without Ped Bike Transit Committee's input, just because they probably will come in the next few days. Fine. So, Lisa, I defer to you and what your preference is.
Okay. I would be fine with the committee endorsing the changes. I will tell you though, Mark, this version should not come to the finance committee. All these comments need to be solved in some way.
Absolutely. That's why I started with that. This is not what I intended to even provide to you guys. So it's been pulling teeth to get these guys, get the contractor to give us what we need in a timely manner. So in some ways I liked having it in the packet so you can see what we've been dealing with.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is it's $27,000. It's and I should be prepared to answer is how much is that over the original contract? It is an overage. I will have that information for finance. I can find it quickly if you needed to know now. It's not too bad, but it's, you know, they went over a little bit. I'd rather not infer now, but I have it all in an email somewhere. I'll look for it here.
John?
Oh, yeah, just a question for Mark. You know, if I was a student and got this paper with all it read, I'd be running to my professor to find out what I screwed up. What is your just general take? This is still, you're perceiving this as being generally okay? There's not a big issue floating here?
Yeah, generally the answer is yes, it's generally okay. We've had some disagreements here and there about work performance and you know, poor pavement surface. You know, they're fixing things kind of on a piecemeal basis because different trades are different subcontractors are involved, landscapers versus pavers versus, you know, utility. So yeah, I mean, I don't have, let me put it this way. I don't see there's nothing in here that I would advise you say, oh, this is unacceptable. It just needs to be, at least
Yeah,
it has to be clean and
Well, then I think it's good that you go ahead and just deal with it. From my
I will, but I just wanted to let the finance committee know that you were aware of the change order. And I'm sorry, I didn't think about having a report on the final cost. I'm looking for that as we're talking. I did spend time on it a couple of weeks ago, and I tallied up what we are dealing with. So I am looking for that as we're talking and trying to stall a little bit.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody also have any? In the meantime, I will tell you that the city street crew paved the section at Branch Street. I'm very happy to report. So that little 80-foot segment that was missing before has been paved.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So this is a communication. Can you all see my email? Actually, what are you seeing? I don't see a green box here. Do you see the email on the screen?
I do see your email on the screen.
Normally there's a green box and it's not showing. So we had a $1 million contribution from Dane County towards this project. And the county fund balance, we got our most recent reimbursement, over $500,000 check came in last week. Lisa, you'd be happy to know. So we've gotten almost all of the project expenses reimbursed now. The balance, according to my calculations, it's $133,000. The council at the last meeting approved an amendment, essentially a change order for KL. KL went $16,000 over their contract because they had so much extra work to do because of the contractor we hired to do the work. Badgerland in their contract currently has $22,000 that they haven't been paid for yet, and on top of that, they have this change order. So, which is exact amount to be determined, and that's why it's still in red. Professor Schaefer would not accept that.
No.
Yeah. So that leaves us with about $67,800 in round numbers for what we have in the grant, and what we are planning to do still is obtain the wayfinding signs that are the county standard. I've talked about those before, and I don't have a plan yet, and I need to get together with a couple of you to develop that plan. Can I get the zoning ordinance done early next week? So at that point, I'll have some time to do that. So that still has to be purchased. So that's I'm guessing a few $1,000, 5,000, whatever it would be, maybe a little less. And then after that, we are planning to start obtaining easements from willing grantors between the Highland Way intersections for that missing segment. So that's, I guess, an update on our budget. So, any
Mark,
questions?
can we use any of the remaining money for acquiring easements?
That's what this is.
That's what that is.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. So anything remaining after the wayfinding signs is this part of the easements.
Okay.
Yep.
I wasn't sure about the conditions of our grant.
Yeah. So I'll elaborate on that. I appreciate the question. So the county has said they are willing to fund half the cost of those easement acquisitions. And that's why our budget for next year, our request is to put in for the city to match that up to $50,000, I think is our request. For city funds, I should say. Which will roughly match what the company has available still. All right, so there's nobody, would somebody, Ted, would you like to ask for a motion? Or?
Would somebody like to move to, what's the exact wording here? To
Well, yeah,
commend this to finance?
well, what you could, I guess, or what you could do is say, recognizing it's not done, committee was briefed on this, on the change order, and
And I
request
note
that's,
that the staff memo says general endorsement of the
that's
change.
what I meant, yeah.
Yeah,
Whether it's by motion or not, it's up to you. Whoops, that's wrong.
Well, Schaefer will move that.
all right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Endorse
those-
the change order in concept. Okay.
Okay. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Yep.
You ready for the next one?
I am ready for the next one. Number 3, the concept for potential road diet and
So this, I
improving
added
stuff.
at the very last minute yesterday, and the reason is because this issue came up at the last minute. For a couple of years now, I have been urging my colleagues and the Planning Commission to consider a road diet on Century Avenue west of Donna Drive specifically. So from this location, actually, let me just get a bigger map up, but you all know where that is. So from Century Avenue, Donna Drive, this intersection here by Craftsman west to Parmenter Street has less than 15,000 cars a day on it. This segment from between Donna Drive and Branch Street, no, I do want to get that. Actually, this will be handy because I still have the drawing loaded here. So this segment here between the shopping center at Middleton Hills, Metro Market, and Branch Street, the Conservancy, carries more traffic. It doesn't carry 19,000 as the county wrote in the email. It actually carries 15,700. The 19,000 references east of Branch Street. So what happens is the traffic, as you go farther east on Century, traffic volume is heavier, and it makes sense because when you come around the lake, there's heavy traffic. A lot of it turns onto Allen, and traffic that continues west, some of it then turns onto Branch Street. So that's why the segment west of Branch Street carries less traffic. And then when you get west of Donna Drive, it gets even a little bit less. Obviously, we have growth. The Red Tail Ridge, Bell Farm developments, there's going to be continued growth in traffic, but we are also supporting land use policies that, as well as enhanced transit, to try and offset the increase in traffic that we're seeing. So with that as context, we are working with Dane County on replacing this bridge over the creek, west, just by Branch Street there, near Stam House. And as part of that design discussion yesterday, the last couple of days, the county's been saying, what's that cross section going to look like? And I said, it's really important that we have a way to get this bike path that we've been planning. It's in our comprehensive plan, in our bicycle plan, to get a 10-foot wide bike path along Century Avenue west to at least Old Creek Road, but really ideally getting it up to Donna Drive. And the problem is we have a couple property owners here who are not willing to grant us an easement to like the Highland Way, like the North Mendota Trail to the east. We've been successful in granting in getting property owners to grant easements. And so because of that, and that's their right not to cooperate on granting easements. By state law, they have that right. The city cannot use eminent domain to acquire bicycle pedestrian facilities or to widen a road for bicycle pedestrian purposes. It's very frustrating. So because of that, we need to, any chance of putting bike accommodations and enhanced pedestrian accommodations within the right of way needs to be done within the existing right of way. And that's why I suggested, is there a way to do this road diet as far as this design? What this drawing shows, starting at the east here, is the bike path is a 10-foot wide, it's not scaled exactly, but you get the idea. So this is city-owned land here. This is fine. We have that land. We control that. We have the cooperation from the stagecoach folks. They've already granted us that when we approved that, we made sure that that bike path easement was there. But then as we get west of Stagecoach, we have to start wiggling this over. The problem is, as you probably don't know, the Stagecoach, what's an address in your block, Ted, where you live, the general address? 6,500 or what?
6,600.
Okay. The problem is, as you probably all know, is that we have a very narrow terrace. You get the idea on this side. Actually, I can't go to the other side, but you can see how narrow this is. So imagine this being on the other side of the street. Well, here. So adding 10 feet inside puts the path actually at the curb, if not into the street. So that's the constraint we're dealing with. And so what I suggested in these drawings here is that we shift the travel lane, create a road diet by having one lane in each direction. The orange symbolizes a two-way left turn lane. It's sometimes called a twiddle, two-way left turn lane. The county, as you probably saw if you read the email, is not enthused with the idea. They said it's outside the scope of their work. That's fine, whatever. My response to them yesterday, like I don't think I put that in the packet because I sent it afterwards. My response to them is then build the bridge wide to accommodate your extra lanes. What they want to do is they want to have an extra turn lane here at Branch Street. So they want to make this 5 lanes. They're going to have 2 lanes to the east, 2 lanes to the west, and then bump this to the north and add a left turn lane. As far as I'm concerned, fine, go with your design for that, because that means the bridge will be a little wider and we can always have the room then for a bike path. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just wanting to make sure that we don't lose track of the idea that we need to enhance pedestrians and bicycles travel in this area. So I just wanted to introduce you to this topic, see what you thought. If you had any other ideas for how to design the road in the future, we'll need to do a traffic study to study all this, obviously. The green I forgot to mention, the green is meant to show terrace or median space. So I just was curious in your feedback.
Does anybody have feedback? Besides me, obviously.
I was just gonna say, I think it's great, Mark, that we're trying to do this, and I like that you're mentioning to not lose sight of connecting this trail. Makes a lot of sense to me. So.
Kirsten?
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for being so proactive on this and keeping track of this. Have we exhausted all, I guess, efforts into trying to talk those property owners into being swayed?
This doesn't, I personally had the conversation with one of the property owners, and I don't want to go into details since it's not really, explicitly on the agenda with one property owner, but I'm based on the reaction and their rights as property owners. Sorry, I'm still trying to go back to my pen. I am very confident that they are not interested. Even if at the time I had offered some funds to help offset the, to help sweeten the pot. And they ended up putting up a fence along the road. It probably tells you where it is. So, because I tried to do this before the fence went up, because that's the time to do it. And they went ahead and put the fence up. So that's the answer.
Okay.
So, until the state law changes, we are dealing with, or unless the state law changes, we are dealing with the constraints that we have.
So with that being said, I think that going with the road diet is an excellent option. Just because it would be our first road diet project and it would set a precedent. It'd be a great example to show people what can be done. And especially since Middleton Glen, Mark, I think I've talked to you multiple times about this, that I've seen people trying to maneuver down that sidewalk from Middleton Glen in wheelchairs or walkers, and it's absolutely horrible. So I think having a road diet and having the option to widen that would be our next best bet.
Here's the sidewalk
And-
that you're talking about. Here's Middleton Glen. This is the
Yep.
VFW. And so people are
And-
going,
Yep, and I travel that almost daily.
and just for context, this sidewalk is one of the older sidewalks, so it's only 4 feet wide. And that means that this terrace is 3 feet at best. So you can already see if we have this outside line and do 10 feet, we're well into this lane. So the other problem we have here is these utility poles will have to be buried. We've been wanting to do that anyway. To bury those, when I first broached that topic over half a decade ago, it was about $500,000 just to bury these utility poles. They are a lot of utilities here, but they end right here above ground, then they go below ground. So Middleton Hills, when Middleton Hills was built, they paid to have all these utility lines buried when it goes along Century. So it's obviously possible to do it. So we just need to bury this section, like goes down to Branch Street, I think is where this overhead lines are. There's just no way, unless the poles were moved on, well, we can't move them onto private property. Well, actually, you know what? A utility probably would have the right to do that. But by the time you move these poles and everything, you might as well, I assume that burying is I don't know what the costs are. We need to figure all that out. But that is the ramification of the road diet is that we need to move utility lines as well. And I wanted to just one friendly correction. We did actually do a road diet on Gammon Road about 8 or 10 years ago. So that was actually a city initiative, and the portion that actually has the road diet on Gammon is exclusive, is in Middleton. Part of it straddles Madison, but Madison did not do a road diet on their part, but they're now talking. So it actually, we have an example of doing a road diet before.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I did forget about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Ken,
Yeah, how much traffic does this have, pedestrian and bicycle? It's kind of on the other side of town for me.
Yeah. Well,
Quite a bit.
yeah, because so this entrance to the
yeah, it does.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead, Ted.
Like this is right. This is where I live. So I'm a pedestrian on it frequently. And I haven't done any hard counts, but just by my daily experience, it's actually gone up in the last couple of years. There are more people walking. There are definitely more people biking. I think Kirsten is also she said she goes by it almost every day. With the new bus network, I've actually noticed another uptick in pedestrians along the way. The bus has actually increased pedestrian traffic along there. I mean, it's Middleton bus, but it's a noticeable increase.
Yeah. And this is the same area that has that problem that you had last winter, Ted, with the snow plows putting snow.
This is
sidewalk?
the exact area we walked.
Okay.
And what I was going to say to add to what Tad said, the reason why there appears to be more people walking here is because the way the bus service is structured now, there's some people who will walk down to Branch Street to catch a different bus. So Route R goes down Branch Street and Route F goes on Century. So without going into all the details on that, it has led to some, people who are at Metro Market, for example. I've seen them walk with their groceries down to Branch Street. Whether they're catching the bus or not, I don't know, but I have seen more activity, as Tad has mentioned, because I live near here too.
So Mark, you need to kind of look at both sides of the street then for this project?
Well, what I was proposing, we don't have room to put a bike path on both sides.
Okay.
We just don't have the right of way that's there today is narrow. It's just it's a I'm gonna guess it's, well, here, let me measure it.
It's about a 44 foot. Oh, including the sidewalks.
Yeah, it's I was gonna say 66 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a 66 feet is a pretty common right of way width. That's just not much room to do anything, especially when you have 4 lanes of traffic. It's very unfortunate that that's what we have to work with, but we can't, because of the infinite wisdom of our state leaders, that we can't widen the road for sidewalk and pedestrian bike purposes. So the right of way actually is wider on the south side in places, but that doesn't help us because we need to, here it's narrow. So down here it's wider, but it's hilly here. It doesn't help us. We can't just have the path jumping across the street. So Tad has noted before that the other side of the street is also, that's where the snow accumulates, and we can't address the problem on both sides of the street, unfortunately.
At least not right away. Jim,
Does this have any implications for traffic entering or exiting the Quick Trip?
No. What under my proposal, there would still be 2 lanes of traffic going eastbound here. So a car that's turning where the truck is, someone else could drive past it in the left lane, if that's what you're asking. We do have, I did think about this though. There's going to be a bus shelter put in here, hopefully this month yet. In front of the Quick Trip, the bus shelter is going to be on in the public right of way. This isn't Quick Trip property, but it's going to be on this side, the outside of the sidewalk. So the problem is buses will stop here, and that effectively then narrows everything to 1 lane. But that's the other problem as we go to the west with this road diet concept is, I think we do want to put in some bus bump outs where we can. I don't want to go into all these details, but there's a need to do a comprehensive road diet plan for this corridor. And I just wanted to see if you guys, if the group was favorable to this, if you felt it was important, and I'm hearing that you support the concept. So, all right, that's really all I mean, if anybody else has anything to add, I'm happy to take whatever feedback you have.
Mark, I'm wondering about the time frame for the road diet study.
Well, we have to do a study. We have to budget for a road diet, for a traffic study of the road diet concept. It's not included in next year's budget. When Sean and I discussed it a year ago, I think he said something like $40,000 roughly, thought it would be. I actually don't see why these studies have to cost that much, because there's plenty of examples of these road diets in the Madison area now. But we obviously, it's with the county. This is a county highway. They have to be on board with it as well. So we do need to do a study. The reason why we didn't push for it in this year's budget is because the county's not planning to rebuild Century Avenue, or repave it, I should say, for several more years. They're just focusing on the bridge right now. It's at over the creek. But I do hope we do the study sooner than later. I mean, if it were budgeted for next year, I think that'd be great, but we didn't include it as our submittal. So.
Okay, thanks.
Kirsten?
What year did we take parking away from that portion of Century?
Good memory.
Was that 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
It's been more than that. That's a good memory, and thanks for pointing that out. Oops, this is going to crash because it's not.
Because I'm wondering if we can use some of that study as well. I suppose not, because traffic volumes have changed, but I'm wondering if we can use some of that information.
There was no
But
study
they've gone down.
Yeah, there was no study done. But the reason what I'm doing here is going to October 6th. See, I think it was already. I think it's been more than 5 years that there hasn't been parking on the street. Although I could be wrong. Here's a sign. Yeah, no parking. So, that's now. Let's see, pick another date.
Yeah, we still have the no parking signs up, but I believe.
Well, sorry, Todd.
I believe it was at least 6 or 7 years ago at this point.
I would agree with that. July Okay, here we go. Here's a no parking. So back in 2011, we had no parking between 6:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. You could park overnight, in other words. But by 2016, those signs. So by 2016, we had removed. Lisa, that might come as news to you that we used to have parking on the street.
I was gonna say it had to be before July of 2017 because I don't remember ever seeing cars parked on Century.
Yeah, it was quite something. And Howard Teal, who used to be on the council, one day just said, "Let's get rid of parking." And it was his district, and because it was his district, and there was some complaints about it, but it was done without a study. It just simply was removed. But the downside to that is now people are used to 4 lanes. You know. Anyway, the focus today was on between Donna and Century for Donna and Branch for now, but that's the overall thinking anyway that I've had.
So Mark, we need the study, like you said. This has been done many times before, but we still need the study because Dane County wants the study.
Right. So what you could do is with this item, let me see how I noticed it on the agenda.
Well,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I was thinking, I was reminded when going over the comprehensive plan that there is language in there about encouraging the use of tactical urbanism. And I know the city has done that before, and it has been the case that other cities have used tactical urbanism or quick build, if you prefer the slightly less cool term, to implement road diets as demonstration projects. What do you think are the chances that we could talk them into that?
You mean the county or yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to ask. It is complicated by the fact that it's a county highway.
Kirsten?
If we did that idea, and I love that idea, Ted, I would say that we would want to, I guess, boost up the morale of people who live along that area prior and really sell it prior to doing the tactical urbanism. Like, talk about how it will slow traffic and quiet the neighborhood and do all of that. And then if we're allowed to implement it, then implement that as the test. But I would say we would definitely want to sell it to people who live along there first.
Yes, in my pre-committee days, my feeble attempts at doing exactly that got about 2 people who were enthused by the idea, but outreach is hard.
Yeah, I would also add that recently the city prohibited left turn lanes going down the hill, turning left onto Old Creek, and a few weeks ago prohibited left turns coming out of Old Creek. What that means is if you don't have left turns in or left turns out anymore, that means you can put up a divider, which is what I'm showing in this concept. Actually, I didn't show it. Oh no, it's not that I showed a divider. What I actually am showing is the idea of severing Old Creek Road altogether, because right now it's just right in, right out, and the disadvantage of turning vehicles, of course, is when you have a path that tends to lead to some conflicts at intersections. So, Lisa, I'd be especially interested in your reaction to that. It's been suggested before, this is not new, but the idea of having no access here onto Old Creek Road for safety reasons, we're already halfway there. So it's just an idea. Otherwise, if you kept it open, people are still going to try and make that turn. And when the problem with people making that turn leftbound in, even if it says you're not supposed to, when you have a dedicated left turn lane at this point, or unless we put in a median there, I guess we could do that. The problem is people will still make the turn, and then they're more worried about the cars coming against them, and then they don't look for the pedestrians or bicyclists on the path. So I think it's been good to have that left turn prohibited. That's why I suggested severing the intersection altogether. more bigger picture thing or more
Yeah.
other issues. That's why we need to study. So maybe if I may suggest, I mean, what you could do is if you look at the agenda, you know,
Mhm.
whatever the committee wants to do, but you know, I guess I was inviting your feedback, and however you want to convey that feedback, you know, you've got some leeway here for whatever you want to, whatever guidance you want to provide that I can share with my colleagues and the county.
I think you're gonna have a tough time getting away without a study, because if you look at, there may wind up being a lot of increased traffic on Century Avenue. You know, eventually with the development of the Bruce Company property, you have the other apartments going up on north of Century, on Parmenter, up in that area, and then also increased development on Century itself. So
Right.
I think it would just be very difficult. I think that's going to raise a lot of questions about eventual traffic volume.
I think we do need to make sure that our plan is open. But again, this has been implemented on roads with much higher volumes. The consultant mentioned that the current Wisconsin DOT guidance is for only up to 17.5. The federal guidance is that it works for up to 25,000 ADT. We have a long way to go. So you're right, Jim. We do need to make sure that we're doing whatever this research is out in the open, so that we can sell it to people. Because traffic is one of those things that seems intuitive, but it's mostly not.
And I wasn't advocating that there not be a study. I guess.
Yeah, no. He was responding to me being overly optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you could, you know, well, go ahead with your discussion. I've said enough this week.
I think if you're happy with what our general sense of support, I guess I'm not sure what else we need tonight.
Well, I guess this is one of those things that I think a motion is helpful because it reflects a vote of the committee.
Okay.
Way or the other, and it's something I can take to my colleagues and to the county,
right,
and maybe the council if it's appropriate. And the idea of the study, you know, that's another option, since you're asking.
Right.
I mean,
so a motion to support. No, that's not quite right. So the question would be a motion to a motion.
Well, a motion to continued study into the possibility of creating a bike path through there.
A motion to support the study of a road diet along Century Avenue between Donna Drive and Branch Street, I think is the technical.
Yeah.
Does that sound right, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's certainly an outcome that would be appropriate. I think the point is we all want more information, and you're intrigued in the concept, and the way to get more information is to do a study. So, you know, if that's, I think the idea of being intrigued in the concept or endorsing the concept, but wanting to see a study to
1 minute
further evaluate it, you know, that's certainly appropriate.
What about something that would say that we endorse the concept of a road diet in order to allow for the continued development of the bicycle path from Branch Street to Donna Drive? I mean, the goal is not necessarily the road diet itself. The goal is to be able to have a 10-foot wide bike and pedestrian path. Is that correct?
that's the goal. The only way to do it is to cut into the road, into the travel lanes, which automatically leads to a road diet. So,
Right.
Pat, I don't mean to interrupt. I have another meeting I have to go to, so
All
I'm gonna
right.
sign off, but you have your you still have your quorum, so thank you, and
Yes.
see you all.
thanks, John.
Hi, John.
This is Kirsten. I like that wording to move to support a study for the road diet to make the path continuous from point A to point B, because it states why we're asking for the study.
All right. So let's use Jim's
So-
wording then.
The study of, to endorse the concept of a road diet in order to allow for improved ped bike facilities, something like that.
That sounds good.
All right, Lisa.
I just wanted to ask, Mark, was your idea that it be limited to Branch Street to Donna? Because your message to Elisa Becker on October 10th mentions between Parmenter. Well, you mentioned between Parmenter and Donna, but then also extending it to Branch Street.
Yeah, it did. The way I wrote it specifically, we have previously talked about and basically gotten local, meaning city staff support for the study west of Donna. So that's why I was focusing on the part east of Donna. East of Donna. So,
But would a road diet study need to be done for that whole?
it would, and we've previously in other words, what you would be endorsing is to add this to the road diet study that's already been, people have already talked about doing the study west of Donna. I understand the limitation of what you're pointing out, but I think to endorse the study of a road diet in order to allow for improved ped bike facilities on this segment of Century is more than adequate, and we, as part of that study, I'm sure we'll also expand the scope to Parmenter Street because of previous discussions. I'm not worried about that.
Right. I agree. This is essentially part two to a question we took up last year on the committee. All right. So do I hear the motion using Jim's wording?
Well, I don't remember Jim's wording exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
using the wording that Mark wrote down.
Well, here's what I wrote down if you want to see it.
Can you read what you wrote down?
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
It's insensitive.
And I would
Oh,
change,
okay, I see it here. I wasn't paying.
I would change on this segment of Century Avenue to be a little more specific.
I'm just, yeah.
Okay, I would move that we endorse that motion.
Do I hear a second?
This is Kirsten. I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, thank you.
Staff updates.
I lost my notes. Okay.
Metro Transit Service.
So we are actively meeting with Metro Transit senior staff. We have in the last several weeks, a couple weeks, I've had several meetings to discuss how the service is going and wanting to get more information on ridership. And they have raised some issues about possibly needing to amend the contract. I don't have all the details of that yet, and Alder Hanairo, as Chair of Finance, will be briefed on this in the near future. But they have there's still, the dust is still settling, let's put it this way, on the transition to the new BRT oriented service and the implications on cost share from Middleton, or the budget that our contribution to the system. The ridership, the other component of this is locally. We have installed the bus pads. So I think the entire network in Middleton now has accessible boarding services. I'm sorry, except for by Murphy Drive. So west of Costco, there's still an area that hasn't been done yet. But I think all the other stops now have accessible boarding services. We are going to be installing shelters in 10 locations. 4 of them are redeployed shelters, of which 2 are Metro Transit owned, and they'll redeploy those. They just told us that today, that they want to do that. Fine with us. That's less that we have to pay for. 2 are shelters that we own, the city owns, that will redeploy, and 6 will be new shelters. We have a plan for where those are going. In fact, I could quickly show you that one. Our Daphne did a really nice job with that. Let me show you that. It's a great map. Here we go. So these are so the red is where the shelters are that are being removed. Let me zoom out a little bit here. So there's the one out in the business park, which you may not even know had a shelter near Top Promotions. Downtown Middleton, Terrace Avenue, Fortune Drive, and then Maple Central, or University Avenue, Maple Street, which is not on a bus route anymore. And we are relocating those red ones to the green locations, Century in front of near Burger King, by MG&E, the substation at MG&E, Park Street. Over here on Allen Boulevard is one. I don't remember where the 4th one is. I don't know why that's not that. Well, here's the other one at Deming at Murphy Drive. So those are going to be the relocated shelters, and then the dark blue is the new shelters that are going in, brand new shelters that we have purchased. The light blue is locations that won't have shelters, but they'll have bike racks installed. So let me back that up. So we're putting bike racks at all the shelter locations as well. But in addition, we're putting bike racks at the light blue locations. At least one U-shaped bike rack. So the idea there, of course, is to make it easier for people to take that last mile to get to the transit service. So if somebody's coming in from the north side of town and is biking here, they can lock their bike up at the transit stop and then take the bus in. It's especially important when the 2 bike racks that are on front of buses are already in use. And you need to be able to, there's not that much capacity for bikes on our transit system. So that's why we thought it was good to add bike racks. This was suggested at a council meeting. We're off to the races with that idea. So those improvements are in the works. And then the financial component of it is in progress and being discussed with options with our finance team. And that will be going to the council in the next couple of weeks or so. So that's all I have for the transit.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Is there ever seating without shelters?
The shelters will have seating in them. Oh, you're saying, is there ever a bench without a shelter?
Right.
Yes. We have an example of that in Middleton on Greenway Boulevard. I know we have one where there's a bench without a shelter. There might be a couple of examples like that.
Okay.
So that's what I had for a transit service update. The other thing I'll say is that we have gotten complaints, and we're aware of complaints, not just with Middleton's route, but elsewhere in the system of overcrowded buses. The Route F apparently is full when it leaves Middleton, which isn't, I mean, actually, Lisa, you probably know more about this than I do from firsthand experience with your husband. But apparently Metro is trying to figure out how to distribute buses differently. We will be getting a new fleet of buses with BRT next year, which will help. But until then, we have a lot of overcrowded buses and some unhappy riders, both in Middleton and Madison, especially since in Madison they can't get on the bus then when ours is full. So the service seems to be, people have gravitated to the new service. There's been a fair amount of pain. Schedules are not being adhered to by buses. There's a lot of late buses, or there's been a lot of growing pain. And Tad, I defer to you since you're probably the most regular bus rider in this group.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and like many other aspects of congestion, it's highly time sensitive. The buses are usually full in the mornings and right in the afternoons as everybody wants to go home, and then otherwise they're fine. At least some, I have noticed at least some schedule difficulties that are just the bus drivers actually have time now instead of being rushed, and sometimes they forget that and stay at a point too long. But I unfortunately also am one of the lucky ones who hasn't been highly affected by the congestion. So because of the timing when I go to work and go home and the specific stops I get on. So I think Kirsten actually has more experience with not being able to get on a bus than I do. I have always been able to. Again, it's a very specific point of crowding, except in the morning, I'm not surprised because I do know that the 72s around 8 o'clock used to be much, much busier than my 72. And otherwise, I'm just rambling now, so. Any other questions or comments? Budget update?
The only thing I was going to add, and Lisa is the chair of the finance committee, so please, Lisa, feel free to jump in. I just wanted to mention from a committee standpoint that the proposed budget at this point that's been released includes funding for the Cayuga connector, which is the segment between the roundabout where the path comes up from the Conservancy and from along Parmenter Street coming from down the drive, extending that path along the off-ramp from Highway 12, hugging the base of the DOT right-of-way, coming out by the fire station. And that is in the budget for next year. And I'm very happy to report that DOT has given it its blessing. In the last week or so, we got an email from them. They do say there's certain parameters attached to that. They want certain spacing from the road, etc. But in concept, they are willing to work with us on that, which is really a nice development. I'm happy to hear that. It took them a while to get back to us, but at least we got that answer. So otherwise, from a budget standpoint, I don't have any other updates. Defer to Alderman Ira. She doesn't have any. That's all I have to.
All right. Do we have any future events, requests for agenda items?
One that I had, and I don't know if we can even address it as an item, is Parkwood Plaza. Realize that has no pedestrian access to it. And I'm sure that might be true with other malls. I know where Metro Market is up in that area, there is. But the only access to where the Middleton Co-op is, and that is you have to walk through where the cars are. And that can, the very busy area can get quite congested. But since that is private property, is there anything we can do about it?
Okay, if I may suggest, rather than discussing it in detail now, if that's a request, Tad, I guess you can take that under advisement as the chair.
Yeah,
Tad, okay.
yep, I am asking for future.
Right, that's what I meant for a future.
Yeah,
agenda.
yeah,
I just wanted to caution us not to get into a discussion of it since it's not noticed on the agenda. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
right.
Okay,
So
That's a request for the agenda for next time.
yes.
Okay.
On a similar note, is it already too late for us to have any input into that left turn lane on Branch? Is that too far along in the process?
No, it's a design. I mean, they made the assumption that that's going to have a left turn. I mean, the answer to that is it's currently in the design process. It's just they're just getting started. Is there
Okay.
something you want to discuss next time, or with me individually?
Well, I mean, to the extent that we are in charge of complete streets, I understand that there are constraints, but I kind of feel it's hypocritical to say that there's no room for bikes on Century Avenue. There's no room for bikes. Oh, but here's an 11-foot wide turn lane. That the current ADT doesn't actually justify. So that's why I was wondering if we would have a chance to have more ordered feedback than my just now off the cuff comment.
If you'd like to send me an email with your specific comment, I can
All right.
follow up on that. Why don't we do it that way?
Yep, that sounds good.
That's all I have.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I.
I,
Hi.
Those opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.